I will now show you how I use shortcuts, presets, and file organization to speed up my workflow. So these are the lessons that you have just seen in the course before. And as you can see, this is how I actually record my courses and how I edit them. So right now, I do not edit my courses like this. I usually edit them with Kling. But as you can see, I have 30 minutes of footage, and this is only the text part of the text masterclass that you have just watched. And this is going to be around 13, 15 minutes of footage once it is edited with Kling. Regardless, I will show how I would cut this footage if I did not have Kling. And this is how I usually edit my A-rolls for my client. And this is how I use my shortcuts to get faster when I edit. So you're going to see all the shortcuts right here, as I usually do. You're going to see Control B, Control C every time I use them. So here's how I would go about it. So I usually put my main recording in the timeline, and then I make sure that the track magnet is on. Then I simply click Control B and I cut, and I will remove it later. So now I have this, I go forward, there is a pause here, cut. I keep clicking Control B on the pauses, I move like this, and then Control B, over and over. And the thing that I know is that if I now start from the start, there is one clip that has to be cut, and one clip that has not to be cut, one clip that has to be cut. So what I can do is start from the right and just cut one clip every 2 clips. And I basically cut all of the pauses that I've made during the recording. And then I go and do it right here as well, here. And I keep doing this. And that's the fastest way that I've found to cutting footage, whether it's courses or anything. I just click Control B and then delete it like so. And this saves me a lot of time than manually getting the split tool every time, splitting, going back to the select tool and cutting. It's way faster like this. So this is how I use the Control B. Then there are a couple more shortcuts that I use. The first one is Control Z and Control Shift Z. So the first one is undo. So basically whatever I have done, it is going to undo it. As you can see, I had deleted this clip. And now if I click undo, it recreates it by clicking Control Z. And then I use Control Shift Z to redo, basically to recut the clip and all of that stuff. And then the other shortcuts that I use are Alt, because by holding Alt, you're going to duplicate your clips like this. And then also Control C and Control V to copy and paste is something that I use often. I hold Control sometimes because when you hold Control, you can select multiple clips like this. And then you can use the arrow keys to go 1 frame forward or Shift arrow key to go 10 frames forward. I'll do this often in the next lessons. Basically, if you go 10 frames forward, you can see right here, if your project is 30 FPS, you're going to go 1 second forward every 3 times you click Shift arrow key. If your project is 6 FPS, it's going to take you 6 clicks to go 1 frame forward. And in this project, it takes me only 3 clicks because it's 30 FPS, and that's because my courses are exported in 30 FPS. However, for the clips and the animations that we will do later, we will use 60 FPS by clicking here and here. And when we have 60 FPS, as you can see here, we have 10. We are at the 10-second frame. And if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clicks, I'm going to get to the 11th second. If I go back to 30 FPS, it's only going to take me 1, 2, and 3 clicks. I really love this feature because it allows you to go a bunch of frames forward and keep your animations organized and aligned. And then there is this feature which is essential, which is zooming in. I always zoom in by holding Control and using the scroll wheel because I couldn't be bothered to go here every time, or even here, I can't just click here and do this. So I'd say Control and scroll wheel is one of the best shortcuts you can learn. And then there is V, which enables or disables a certain clip. And the last shortcuts that I use are Alt-G for compound clips and Alt+G, of course, to undo the compound clips. And when I have keyframes, for example, here there is this zoom out. that I've just added, I always click Alt-K to drag in this graph where you can do auto curves and all of that cool stuff so that the animations are more smooth. I always use this shortcut as well. And the last one is Shift Z, which basically lets you see the whole timeline in one click. It's useful when you have, for example, text that you want to highlight it and all of that cool stuff. And then we get into file organization, which is something that I don't see anyone doing in CapCut, but it's extremely important, especially if you're having a big project. I didn't actually do it in the lessons because I was creating 5 seconds animations. But when you're creating a 10-minute video and you're creating 10, 12 of those complex animations, you should always create a new folder and then you can rename it. For example, rectangle animation. That's what I usually do. I give a name to each animation and then I go a new folder, and I usually have a folder which is called A-roll, which is the main footage that my client has given me. And then I always import a folder from my assets pack, which is the sound effects, so that I have all of them here in a unique folder. And then I also always import the colored screen, which is just a collection of colored screen, which might be useful. I always use white and black. Those are my top picks because I can create, those feathers with, I can create those feathers with black, as you can see. As you can see, those are pretty cool to have. And then I also sometimes create flashlights with whites, stuff like that. So I always have this. And then I also have folders for overlays for color grading, so that I can simply drag this in and, I go on blend, it's overlay, and as you can see, you have your color grading. That's one of the overlays that I use, not for my courses, of course, more for my edits. But basically, I always drag this overlay in. By the way, it's all in the assets pack. It's completely free. It's a Google Drive link. You can download everything. And then I always drag in also a music folder. So for each of my clients, I always have a compilation of the music, of the songs that I usually use. And they're really cool to have because you don't need to always research them, but if you're creating a short, you can just drag one in and boom, you're done. And then I also have folders for backgrounds for my clients. For example, there is a client of mine that wants this kind of pastel backgrounds. As you can see, these are the ones that she likes the most. And so I've just made compilations that I can use them and switching them between videos, and they don't have to research them every time. So that's how I usually go about folder organization. I have my A-roll, sound effects, music, overlays for color grading, some color screens that I usually use, the backgrounds, and some animations if I have some templated stuff that I want to import. And then I just go ahead and edit the videos. And the last thing that I use is, if I go on text, I have a lot of presets in my main space. And as you can see, I have a lot of presets. For example, this one is the preset that I used to have in my reels. As you can see, there is a shadow, and the text is really big because this text was used for 9:16 videos, which, as you can see, it's decent size for them. So I'll go back to 16:9. And as you can see, it always keeps my font size, my opacity, and the only thing that always glitches with presets, it's the blurriness of the shadow, which is too blurry. It somehow always goes at 198%. Even if I import another preset, let's say, for example, this one, intro video, if I go ahead and drop this and it has a shadow, it's going to be 198. It always glitches. I don't know why. You can simply change it by just changing it to 33, which is what it usually is, and you're good. And to create presets, you should always go on default text and you customize the text as you want. You create the text that you like. So for example, let's say that I'm creating a text like this, and then I add a bit of glow. This is not a bad text, I kind of like it. I'll add a bit of a shadow, make it pretty subtle. And then I can simply click here, save as a preset, and I'll save it to the space that I want. And then I'll click OK. And as you can see, you have your preset right here. If it doesn't work, it means that you should log in. Keep in mind that here you're going to have written Join Pro, but you can simply click and it's going to bring you to a Google page. Just click login. You log in with your Google account. It takes 2 seconds. And then it's going to ask you, do you want to join Pro? And you just say no, and you're logged in forever. You don't need to pay anything. And then also another thing that it's really cool to do, presets is adjustment layers. So you go right here, create an adjustment layer for color grading. Let's remove this text. And I'll go ahead and, for example, let's say I want to make everything a bit more saturation and a bit colder and a bit brighter. And I'll add a bit of contrast. So this is how it looks like. Let's say I like this. What I will go ahead and do is save as a preset so that I can always reuse it. And I can call it color grading course preset. And I can save it to my space. And if I go on presets, I will have 2 presets which are created by default from CapCut. And then I will have my preset, which is this one, as you can see. And you can create different kind of presets. So for example, this one is a bit without saturation. As you can see, it's lacking saturation and with a lot of yellow temperature. And this one is more black and white. It's more bright, so it probably is going to have brightness and less contrast. You can tweak them if you want. However, I just created my own and reuse it every time. And this is it when it comes to presets and all that cool stuff. So I wish you an amazing learning.